The dining hall of Harrington Manor gleamed with polished silver and crystal, but Eliza felt the weight of every gleaming surface. At 19, she was the youngest maid, her hands calloused from scrubbing floors and her heart bruised from Lord Harrington's relentless scorn. Each morning, as she arranged the breakfast table, his voice would thunder through the room, picking at her work like a vulture. Today was no different. "Eliza, you've placed the forks wrong again." Harrington's voice boomed, his mustache twitching with disdain. Guests, sipping tea, glanced up, their eyes sharp with curiosity. "Must I do everything myself?" "Lazy girl, always daydreaming." Eliza's cheeks burned, but she kept her gaze on the tablecloth, smoothing a wrinkle that wasn't there. "I'm sorry, sir," she murmured, her voice steady despite the knot in her chest. She hadn't misplaced the forks. She never did. But Harrington thrived on her humiliation, his accusations a daily ritual to assert his power. The other maids, older and wary, avoided her eyes. They pitied her but wouldn't risk his wrath. Eliza didn't blame them. Harrington was a storm, and she was the lightning rod. Yesterday, he'd berated her for a teacup left on a sideboard, never mind that his nephew had misplaced it. The day before, it was a speck of dust on a banister she'd polished twice. Each jab chipped away at her, but she refused to break. She slipped into the kitchen, her refuge, where the cook, Mrs. Gale, offered a sympathetic nod. "He's a cruel one, love," Mrs. Gale said, stirring a pot of stew. "But you're tougher than he thinks." Eliza managed a small smile. "I have to be." She didn't tell Mrs. Gale about the sketches she hid in her room, drawings of the garden's roses and ivy, their lines flowing like her dreams of escape. Those sketches were her secret, her way of holding on to herself when Harrington tried to crush her. That afternoon, as she dusted the library, Harrington's voice rang out again. "Eliza! The tablecloth in the drawing room is a disgrace. Wrinkled like your work ethic." A group of his friends, lounging with cigars, chuckled. One, a woman in a velvet gown, raised an eyebrow. "Really, Charles, must you always scold the poor thing?" Harrington's eyes narrowed. "Discipline, my dear. She's lucky to have a job." Eliza's hands trembled as she clutched the duster, but she nodded and hurried to the drawing room. The tablecloth was flawless. She knew it, and he knew it. This was his game: humiliate her, keep her small. But something in her stirred, a spark of defiance. She wouldn't let him win forever. In the quiet of her attic room that night, Eliza pulled out her sketches. Her pencil danced across the paper, capturing the curve of a lily from memory. Each stroke was a rebellion, a claim to something Harrington couldn't touch. She tucked the drawings into an old cupboard, hidden behind a stack of linens. They were her treasure, her proof that she was more than his scapegoat. The next morning, Harrington's prized guest arrived, Mr. Langley, an art collector with a reputation for spotting genius. Eliza served tea in the parlor, her movements precise despite Harrington's glare. Langley, a wiry man with sharp eyes, chatted about paintings and sculptures, his passion filling the room. Harrington preened, eager to impress. As Eliza cleared the cups, Langley's gaze lingered on her. "You're quiet," he said kindly. "Do you enjoy the arts?" Harrington snorted before she could answer. "Eliza? She's barely literate. Don't waste your breath." Eliza's jaw tightened, but she forced a polite smile. "I like to draw, sir," she said softly, her voice almost lost in the clink of china. Langley's brow lifted. "Draw? Interesting. Perhaps you'll show me sometime." Harrington laughed, a harsh bark. "Sketches of dustpans, no doubt. Back to work, girl." Eliza retreated, her heart pounding. Langley's interest was a flicker of hope, but hope was dangerous. She couldn't afford to dream too big, not yet. Still, as she polished silver in the pantry, she imagined her sketches in a gallery, admired by strangers. The thought made her stand taller. That evening, disaster struck. Eliza was cleaning the guest wing when she heard a crash. She rushed to the hallway, where a vase lay shattered on the floor. Harrington's nephew, a careless boy of 16, stood nearby, whistling innocently. Before she could speak, Harrington stormed in. Eliza, he roared. You clumsy fool. That vase was worth more than you'll ever earn. It wasn't me, sir, she said, her voice firm despite the fear in her gut. I was in the other room. Lies. Harrington's face reddened. You'll pay for this, mark my words. The nephew smirked, slipping away. The other servants watched, silent. Eliza's chest tightened, but she held her ground. I didn't do it, sir. Harrington leaned close, his voice low and venomous. You're nothing here, girl. Nothing. As he stalked off, Eliza's hands clenched. She was tired of being nothing. In her room that night, she sketched furiously, pouring her anger into every line. The garden's beauty became her weapon, her way to fight back. She didn't know how, but she'd find a way to make him see her really see her. Unbeknownst to her, Mr. Langley had wandered into the servants' quarters, searching for a misplaced coat. In the dim light of the cupboard, he spotted a corner of paper peeking from the linens. Curious, he pulled it out. His breath caught. The sketch, a delicate rendering of a rose, alive with detail, stunned him. He rifled through the stack, finding more, each one a masterpiece. Who did these? He muttered, his mind racing. He tucked the sketches under his arm, determined to find their creator. Eliza, asleep in her attic, had no idea her world was about to change. Eliza woke to the usual clamor of the manor, pots clanging in the kitchen, footsteps echoing in the halls. Her body ached from yesterday's long hours, but her mind was sharp with resolve. Harrington's words still stung, branding her as nothing, but her sketches were her shield. She dressed quickly, tucking her latest drawing, a twisting vine, into the cupboard before heading downstairs. Today, she'd keep her head down and avoid his wrath. Or so she hoped. In the dining hall, Harrington was already holding court, his voice booming as he entertained Mr. Langley and other guests. Eliza moved silently, refilling teapots and clearing plates. Langley's eyes followed her, curious and searching, but she avoided his gaze. His kindness yesterday had unsettled her. What if he'd only been polite? What if Harrington was right, and her drawings were worthless? Eliza! Harrington's voice snapped her from her thoughts. The sugar bowl is empty. Must you always fail at the simplest tasks? She froze, her hand on a tray. The sugar bowl was full, she checked it twice. It's full, sir, she said, her voice low but steady. Harrington's eyes gleamed with malice. Are you calling me a liar, girl? The guests shifted uncomfortably, sensing the tension. Langley leaned forward, his brow furrowed. No, sir, Eliza said, forcing calm. I'll fetch more. She turned to the pantry, her heart pounding. He was baiting her, and she wouldn't give him the satisfaction of a fight. Not here, not now. In the kitchen, Mrs. Gale caught her arm. He's worse today, love. That Langley fellow's got him on edge. Wants to talk art, and Harrington's no match for him. Eliza nodded, grabbing a fresh sugar bowl she didn't need. I just need to get through the day. But the day had other plans. As she returned to the dining hall, Langley stood, holding a small stack of papers. Her papers. Her sketches. Eliza's stomach dropped. How had he found them? Her secret, her only refuge, was in his hands. Lord Harrington, Langley said, his voice cutting through the chatter. I found these in a cupboard last night. They're extraordinary. Who's the artist? Harrington's face tightened, his mustache twitching. Some servant's scribbles, no doubt. Worthless. Langley's eyes narrowed. Worthless? These are finer than half the works in my gallery. He held up a sketch of a rose, its petals delicate and alive. The guests murmured, craning to see. I want to know who drew them. Eliza stood rooted, her tray trembling. Every eye turned to her, and she felt exposed, raw. Harrington's gaze bored into her, daring her to speak. She wanted to shrink, to disappear, but something in Langley's voice, genuine, urgent, gave her courage. They're mine, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The room went silent. Harrington laughed, a harsh, grating sound.
Yours? Don't be absurd. You're a maid, not an artist.
Langley ignored him, stepping closer to Eliza.
You drew these? All of them?
She nodded, her throat tight.
Yes, sir. In my spare time. Langley's face lit up. Remarkable. I'm hosting an exhibition in town next week. I want these displayed. They'll be the talk of the county. Harrington's laughter died. An exhibition? For a maid's doodles? You're joking.
I'm quite serious, Langley said, his tone sharp.
Talent like this deserves a stage. What's her name?
Eliza, she said before Harrington could dismiss her. Her voice was stronger now, fueled by a spark of defiance.
My name is Eliza. Langley smiled. Eliza, you'll be my guest at the exhibition. Bring every sketch you have.
The guests buzzed, their whispers like a rising tide. Harrington's face reddened, his control slipping.
This is preposterous, he sputtered. She's needed here. She can't just.
She can, and she will, Langley cut in, his authority unshakable. Unless you'd rather explain to the town why you're hiding a prodigy. Harrington's jaw clenched, but he said nothing.
Eliza's heart raced. This was her chance, her way out of the shadows. But the look in Harrington's eyes told her he wouldn't let it come easily.
That afternoon, as she polished silver in the pantry, Harrington cornered her.
You think you're clever, don't you? He hissed. Parading your little drawings to embarrass me? I didn't parade anything, Eliza said, meeting his gaze. Mr. Langley found them.
You'll regret this, he said, his voice low and venomous.
I'll make sure of it.
He stormed off, leaving her shaken but unbroken. She wouldn't let him scare her. Not now, when she was so close to something bigger. That night, she gathered her sketches, dozens of them, each a piece of her soul. She hid them in a satchel under her bed, her hands steady despite the fear gnawing at her. The next morning, Langley sought her out in the garden, where she was sweeping the paths. Eliza, he said, his voice warm, I meant what I said. Your work is special.
But Harrington's pride is wounded. Be careful.
I will, she said, gripping the broom.
Thank you, sir. For seeing me. Langley nodded.
You're more than he thinks.
Don't forget that.
As he walked away, Eliza felt a shift inside her.
She wasn't just a maid anymore.
She was an artist, and soon the world would know it.
But Harrington's threat lingered, a dark cloud on her horizon.
She'd need to be clever, to outmaneuver him before he could sabotage her. In the servants' quarters, she overheard the other maids whispering about the exhibition.
Imagine, our Eliza, a star, one said. Harrington's furious. Says she's ungrateful.
Let him stew, Mrs. Gale said, winking at Eliza.
You show him love.
Eliza smiled, but her mind was racing.
Harrington wouldn't just stew, he'd act.
She had to protect her sketches, her chance at freedom. That night, she moved them to a locked box in Mrs. Gale's room, the only place Harrington never checked. It wasn't enough, but it was a start. As she lay in bed, staring at the attic ceiling, she imagined the exhibition, her sketches framed, admired, her name on everyone's lips. The thought made her heart soar, but fear tethered it. Harrington's pride was a dangerous thing, and she'd just bruised it.
Whatever he planned, she'd be ready. She had to be. The days leading to the exhibition were a tightrope for Eliza. Harrington's temper simmered, his insults sharper, his eyes tracking her every move.
She felt his resentment like a physical weight, but she refused to falter. Her sketches were her lifeline, and Langley's promise of the exhibition was a beacon. She worked harder, polished faster, and kept her head low, all while planning her next steps. Harrington wouldn't ruin this, she'd make sure of it. Each night, she checked the locked box in Mrs. Gale's room, her sketches safe inside. She added new ones when she could, stealing moments to draw in the garden's quiet corners. The roses, the ivy, the lilies, they were her allies, their beauty fueling her courage. But fear gnawed at her.
Harrington's threat wasn't empty.
He'd find a way to strike, and she had to be ready. One morning, as she served breakfast, Harrington's voice cut through the chatter.
"Eliza, the napkins are creased. Again."
His tone was venomous, his eyes daring her to argue. The guests, including Langley, glanced up, the air thick with tension. "They're fresh, sir," Eliza said, her voice calm but firm.
She'd ironed them herself, twice. Harrington's lip curled. "Defiant, are we?"
"Perhaps you're too busy with your little drawings to do your job."
Langley set down his cup, his gaze steady. "Charles, the napkins are fine. Let's not spoil breakfast over nothing."
Harrington's face twitched, but he forced a smile.
"Of course, Langley. Just keeping standards."
His eyes promised retribution, and Eliza's stomach nodded.
He was biding his time.
Later, in the kitchen, Mrs. Gale pulled her aside.
"He's plotting, love.
I heard him muttering to that nephew of his.
Something about putting you in your place. Watch your back." Eliza nodded, her jaw tight. "I will." "Thanks, Mrs. Gale." She couldn't confront Harrington directly, not yet.
But she could outsmart him. She started varying her routine, taking different routes through the manor, checking the box at odd hours. If he was watching, she'd make it harder for him to corner her.
2 days before the exhibition, disaster loomed.
Eliza was cleaning the guest wing when she heard a muffled crash from the servants' quarters. She ran, heart pounding, to find Mrs. Gale's room in disarray.
The locked box was open, its lid splintered.
Her sketches were gone. "No," she whispered, sinking to her knees. Her hands shook as she searched the room, but there was nothing, no sketches, no clues. Tears stung her eyes, but she forced them back.
This was Harrington's doing. It had to be.
Mrs. Gale rushed in, her face pale.
"Oh, love, I was in the laundry. I didn't hear a thing."
"Who'd do this?"
"Harrington," Eliza said, her voice hard.
"Or his nephew, on his orders." She stood, anger replacing despair.
"They think they've won. They're wrong."
Mrs. Gale gripped her arm.
"What'll you do?"
"The exhibition's in 2 days." "I'll find them," Eliza said. "Or I'll make new ones."
"I'm not giving up."
Her mind raced. She had no proof it was Harrington, but she knew his game. He wanted her broken, humiliated. She wouldn't let him have that victory. She spent the day searching, slipping into unused rooms, checking cupboards, even the nephew's quarters when he was out.
Nothing. Harrington was too clever to leave evidence.
By nightfall, exhaustion clawed at her, but she refused to stop. In her attic room, she pulled out her pencil and paper. If she couldn't find her sketches, she'd create new ones. She drew until her fingers cramped, recreating the garden's beauty from memory. Each stroke was defiance, a refusal to let Harrington win.
The next morning, Langley found her in the parlor, arranging flowers.
"Eliza," he said, his voice low, "I heard about your sketches."
"Mrs. Gale told me." "I'm so sorry."
Eliza's throat tightened, but she met his gaze.
"I'm making more, sir. I won't let this stop me." Langley's eyes softened. "You're remarkable. I've spoken to the exhibition organizers.
They'll reserve a space for you, new sketches or not."
"But tell me, do you suspect anyone?" She hesitated. Accusing Harrington without proof could backfire.
"I don't know, sir," she said carefully.
"But I'll be ready tomorrow." Langley nodded. "Good. And if you need help, you come to me."
His support steadied her, but the clock was ticking. That afternoon, she overheard the nephew bragging to a stable boy about teaching the maid a lesson.
It wasn't proof, but it was enough.
She confronted him in the courtyard, her voice low and fierce.
"Where are they?" she demanded. "My sketches. I know you took them."
The nephew smirked, his eyes glinting.
"Prove it, maid. You're nothing without your little pictures."
"I'm more than you'll ever be," she shot back.
"And I'll prove that tomorrow."
She turned away, her heart racing. He'd slipped, confirming her suspicions. The sketches were somewhere in the manor, she just had to find them. That night, she barely slept, her mind churning. She drew another sketch, a bold rendering of the manor's fountain, its water leaping free. It wasn't enough to replace all she'd lost, but it was a start. At dawn, she slipped into the library, a place Harrington rarely checked. On a hunch, she searched the shelves, her fingers brushing a hidden panel. It clicked open, revealing a stack of papers, her sketches, crumpled but intact. Relief flooded her, followed by fury. Harrington had hidden them here, thinking she'd never look. She gathered them carefully, her hands trembling with triumph. He'd underestimated her, and that was his mistake. As she hid the sketches in a new spot, a loose floorboard in the attic, she felt a surge of strength. Tomorrow, she'd walk into the exhibition with her head high, her work ready to shine. Harrington could scheme all he wanted, but she was done being his victim. The battle wasn't over, but she'd just won a crucial round. The morning of the exhibition dawned bright, but Eliza felt the weight of the day like a storm cloud. Her sketches, reclaimed from the library's hidden panel, were tucked safely in a satchel under her bed. She'd added the new fountain drawing, its bold lines a testament to her defiance. Harrington's sabotage had failed, but she knew he wasn't done. Today, she'd face him on a new battlefield, the town hall, where her art would speak louder than his insults. She dressed in her best apron, the only one without stains, and braided her hair tightly. No time for nerves. In the kitchen, Mrs. Gale pressed a warm scone into her hand. "You'll dazzle em, love," she said, her eyes shining. "Show that old grump what you're made of." Eliza managed a smile. "I will. Thank you." Her heart raced as she grabbed her satchel and slipped out the manor's back door. Langley had arranged a carriage, and it waited by the gate, a small kindness that steadied her. She climbed in, clutching her sketches like a shield. The town hall buzzed with life, merchants, artists, and locals mingling under banners of silk. Eliza's stomach churned as she stepped inside, her satchel heavy with hope. Langley greeted her at the entrance, his face alight. "Eliza, your space is ready. Come, let's set up." He led her to a corner draped in velvet, where a table and easels waited. She arranged her sketches carefully, smoothing creases, her hands steady despite the crowd's hum. The rose, the ivy, the fountain, each drawing felt like a piece of her soul laid bare. Passers-by paused, whispering, their eyes wide with admiration. Eliza's chest tightened. This was real. Her work was here, seen. Langley leaned close. "They're stunning. I knew they would be." He glanced at the growing crowd. "Harrington's coming, you know. He can't stay away, not when the town's talking." Eliza nodded, her jaw tight. "Let him come. I'm ready." She wasn't sure she believed it, but saying it helped. She stood by her display, answering questions from curious visitors. "Yes, I drew them myself," she said again and again, her voice growing stronger. "Inspired by the manor's gardens." A woman in a feathered hat gasped at the fountain sketch. "It's alive." "You're a marvel, dear." Others nodded, their praise washing over her like a tide. For the first time, Eliza felt seen not as a maid, but as an artist. Then Harrington arrived. His presence cut through the room, his cane tapping the floor like a warning. He wore a forced smile, his eyes scanning the crowd until they landed on Eliza. Her pulse quickened, but she held his gaze, refusing to flinch. He approached her display, his nephew trailing behind, smirking. "Well," Harrington said, his voice dripping with disdain, "what's this? The maid's scribbles, on show for all to pity?" The crowd hushed, sensing a scene. Eliza's hands clenched, but Langley stepped forward. "They're masterpieces, Charles. The town agrees. Look around." Harrington's smile tightened. He glanced at the sketches, his eyes lingering on the fountain. For a moment, something flickered in his expression, surprise, perhaps, or grudging respect. But it vanished quickly. "A fluke," he said loudly. "Anyone can doodle flowers." A man in a tweed coat, a local critic, spoke up.
Hardly a fluke. These show rare talent. I'm recommending her for the county gallery. The crowd murmured, nodding.
Harrington's face reddened, his control slipping.
You're all fools, he snapped. She's a servant, nothing more. Eliza's anger flared.
She stepped forward, her voice clear.
I'm an artist, sir. My work speaks for itself. You can't take that away. The room stilled.
Harrington's eyes narrowed, but before he could retort, a woman's voice rang out.
She's right.
These are beautiful. Others joined in, clapping, their support a wall around her. Harrington's nephew shifted uncomfortably, his smirk gone.
Langley placed a hand on Eliza's shoulder. The people have spoken, Charles.
You should be proud to have such talent in your household. Harrington's jaw worked, but he said nothing.
The crowd's applause grew, drowning out his silence.
He turned abruptly, stalking toward the exit, his nephew hurrying after. Eliza's knees trembled, but she stood tall, her heart soaring. She'd faced him and won. As the day wore on, her sketches drew more praise.
The critic approached, offering to mentor her.
A shopkeeper bought the rose sketch on the spot.
Eliza's head spun with possibility.
She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was building a future. That evening, as the exhibition wound down, Langley found her packing her remaining sketches.
You were brilliant, he said. But Harrington's pride is bruised. He may lash out. Stay sharp.
Eliza nodded, her satchel lighter now.
I will.
And thank you, sir, for everything.
He smiled. You did this, Eliza. Never forget that.
Back at the manor, the other maids swarmed her, buzzing with excitement.
You showed him, one said. Mrs. Gale hugged her tight. Proud of you, love.
Eliza grinned, but her mind was already turning.
Harrington's retreat wasn't surrender. He'd try something else, something crueler.
She'd need to protect herself, her sketches, her newfound strength. As she climbed to her attic, she felt the spark of a plan. Tomorrow, she'd confront him, not with anger, but with something he couldn't ignore, her talent, her truth. The war wasn't over, but today's victory was hers. Eliza returned to Harrington Manor with her head high, but her guard higher. The exhibition's triumph still warmed her, the memory of the crowd's applause a shield against the manor's chill. Her sketches, now fewer after sales, were hidden again in the attic's loose floorboard. She'd won a battle, but Harrington's silence worried her.
A man like him didn't retreat, he regrouped.
She'd need to be ready for his next move. The next morning, the manor felt tense, the air thick with unspoken grudges. Eliza served breakfast, her movements precise, her eyes scanning for trouble. Harrington sat at the head of the table, his face a mask of calm, but his knuckles were white around his teacup. Langley, still a guest, watched him closely, then gave Eliza a reassuring nod. She nodded back, grateful for his presence. As she cleared plates, Harrington's voice sliced through the quiet.
Eliza, the tablecloth is off-center. Can you do nothing right?
His tone was sharp, but quieter than usual, as if testing her.
It's centered, sir, she said evenly, meeting his gaze. I checked it myself. His eyes flashed, but Langley spoke before he could snap. It looks fine to me, Charles. Let's enjoy the meal.
The other guests murmured agreement, and Harrington's jaw tightened. He said nothing more, but Eliza felt his stare like a blade at her back. In the kitchen, Mrs. Gale whispered, "He's stewing, love. Heard him ranting to his sister last night, says you've humiliated him. Be careful." Eliza nodded, her mind racing. Harrington's pride was his weakness, and she'd exposed it.
He wouldn't forgive that.
She needed to act, to turn his anger into something else. An idea sparked, one that could shift the ground beneath him. She'd use her art, not to fight, but to bridge the gap between them. It was risky, but she was done hiding. That afternoon, she found Langley in the library. "Sir," she said, her voice steady, "I have an idea. A charity project, sketches of the manor's gardens, sold to raise funds for the town's orphanage. I want Lord Harrington to back it."
Langley's brow lifted. Bold. He's not in a generous mood, but if it's public, he might agree to save face. How can I help? Spread the word, she said. Make it big before he can say no. Langley grinned. Done. I'll talk to the town council today. By evening, whispers of the charity project buzzed through the manor. The other maids were thrilled, and even the butler, a stern man, gave her an approving nod. Eliza worked late, sketching a new piece, a grand view of the manor's rose garden, for the project's announcement. She presented to Harrington herself, a peace offering wrapped in a challenge. The next day, she approached him in the drawing room, where he sat alone, reading. Her heart pounded, but she held the sketch tightly. Sir, she said, I have a proposal. Harrington looked up, his eyes cold. What now? More of your nonsense? She held out the sketch. A charity project. My drawings, sold to help the orphanage. The town's already talking about it. I'd like your support. He stared at the sketch, then at her, his face unreadable. You think you can manipulate me? Parade your little talent to shame me further? No, sir, she said, her voice firm. I want to do good. And I think you do too. This could honor the manor's name. For a moment, he was silent, his fingers tracing the sketch's lines. Then he laughed, a low, bitter sound. You're cleverer than I thought. Fine. I'll back it, if only to stop your scheming. Eliza exhaled, relief mixing with caution. Thank you, sir. I'll make it worthwhile. He waved her off, but as she left, she caught a flicker in his expression, something like respect, grudging and faint. She'd planted a seed. Now she had to nurture it. Over the next week, the charity project took shape. Langley rallied the town, and Eliza worked tirelessly, producing sketches that captured the manor's beauty. The orphanage's matron visited, thanking her with tears in her eyes. The town hall offered to host a second exhibition, this time for the charity. Eliza's name was everywhere, no longer whispered but celebrated. Harrington, true to his word, lent his name to the project, though he kept his distance. At the manor, his insults stopped, replaced by curt nods. The other servants noticed, their chatter filled with awe. You've tamed him, one maid said. Eliza shook her head. She hadn't tamed him, she'd shown him she was more than his scapegoat. The charity exhibition was a triumph. The town hall brimmed with people, their wallets open for the orphanage. Eliza's sketches sold out, and Harrington, standing stiffly at the event, was forced to smile as the mayor praised his generosity. Langley caught Eliza's eye, winking. She grinned back, her heart full. Afterward, Harrington approached her, his face tight. You've done well, he said, the words clipped. I was harsh. Too harsh. I misjudged you. Eliza met his gaze, seeing the struggle behind his pride. Thank you, sir, she said softly. I forgive you. He nodded, then hesitated. The project, keep it going. I'll fund it. It wasn't warmth, but it was a start. In the weeks that followed, Eliza and Harrington worked together, an uneasy but growing partnership. She sketched, he organized, and the orphanage thrived. The manor felt lighter, the servants bolder, inspired by her courage. Eliza's attic room became a studio, her drawings no longer hidden but framed on the walls. One evening, as she sketched in the garden, Harrington joined her, his cane tapping softly. You've changed things, he said, almost to himself. Made me see differently. She smiled, pencil pausing. We both have, sir. He nodded, a rare softness in his eyes. They weren't friends, not yet, but they were allies, bound by respect forged in struggle. Eliza turned back to her sketch, the roses blooming under her hand. She'd fought for her place and won, not just in the manor, but in the world. And she was just beginning.